It is my opinion, and that of many of the LOA community, that affirmations are the most versatile technique. You can use them anytime, any place, you can say them out loud, you can speak them in your mind, and you don't even really need to use all that much effort. But how do you know that you have the right affirmation for your situation, or one that's really going to impress the subconscious mind? Or let's say you've got those two things figured out, how many times a day do you say them, or how long do you say them for? If you have any of these questions, in this video I intend to clear them up once and for all so that you can go forward making the perfect affirmations to create your perfect experience. But first, let's actually identify what an affirmation is so we know what we're working with. When it comes to any manifestation technique, whether it's affirmations, visualizations, scripts, they are all essentially ways of structuring your thoughts to make it easier to align yourself with the state of having. If I was to say to yourself, think as though you are rich, maybe you might have a little bit of trouble. But if I was to say, affirm a statement that implies you are rich, that is a lot easier to do. Now, all of these techniques are essentially modes of transport from getting you from point A, not being in the state of having your desire, or not having your desire at all, to point B, which is that of being in the state of having your desire, so your desire can be created at some point in time. But what is an affirmation specifically? An affirmation is essentially turning your thoughts into a spoken statement, or a statement that can be spoken or said in your mind. Generally, people do say them out loud, which is why we'll be referring to it as a spoken statement through this video. But an affirmation is taking a thought, turning it into a statement that you could say out loud or in your head. A visualization would be taking a thought and turning it into a visual scene. A script would be taking a thought and turning it into a written statement. So now that we have an idea of what an affirmation is, a spoken, structured thought, let's get into actually how to create the perfect affirmations for you. Now, what are the guidelines? There isn't really a rule of thumb, as in it has to be like this, but there are generally things that are good for you when creating an affirmation to make them the most effective. Starting off with present tense. Now, there are people out there that have had success with future tense affirmations and such, but the subconscious mind works in the present moment. It's always taking in what is being told to it now and assuming it is being occupied now. So if your affirmation is future tense, your subconscious mind will take that in as in it's currently not here. For example, if you're saying I will be in a relationship, your subconscious mind is taking that in as not currently, which pushes your experience out to some future date. Now, for every day that you keep saying I will be, you are running the risk of pushing it back to a further and further date. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is make it so that your affirmation is a statement in the present tense. Generally speaking, people like to refer to it as I am, or start their affirmation with I am. So using that same example of a relationship, instead of saying I will be in a relationship, you will say I am in a relationship. If you have a specific person in mind, you can obviously add them in. I am in a specific person, in a relationship with Deborah, for example. So that's the tense of the affirmations. Generally speaking, you will want them present tense as though your desire is currently happening right now. If it's something that you would be experiencing, if it's something that you would be experiencing in that outcome, you will want to create that statement as though you are currently experiencing it. I am in consistent communication with my person. I am a data analyst for insert company. I do earn £10,000 per month. Things like that. You want to make them present tense. But how long or short should an affirmation be? Now, I actually personally prefer longer affirmations because I can add more detail in them. But that isn't a rule that everyone has to follow. If you prefer shorter affirmations, you are more than welcome to do so. Your subconscious mind doesn't know what is and isn't true, and isn't sitting there saying, well, that's more than 7 words, therefore I'm not going to take that in as a story. It's always listening and is always soaking in information. So if you prefer affirmations that are short, like I am in a relationship, go for it. If you prefer affirmations that are longer, like I am in a loving, passionate, committed relationship, go for it. I've had success with both. There are people that have success out there with longer ones and people that have success out there with shorter ones. So I recommend finding a affirmation structure in terms of length that works for you. Something that you can speak or say in your head consistently without getting bored or burnt out or anything like that. So find what works for you. So far we've identified they should be in present tense and they can be as long or as short as you would desire them to be. But what should the actual affirmation contain? An affirmation that you would desire to experience should contain what that experience would be. What I mean by that is, if you want a loving relationship with Deborah, your affirmation would be something like, I am in a loving relationship with Deborah. You wouldn't then affirm something that makes no sense in relation to this. For example, I am in a loving relationship with Alex, even though Deborah is your person. Or I'm in a relationship that's very with Alex, even though Deborah is your person and you want a loving one. You would take what you would actually wish to experience and then put that in your affirmation. If you need to, sit there with a pen and paper and write it all down so that you can get an understanding of what you wish to experience within this relationship, and then you can take that information and turn it into an affirmation. For example, if your list says loving and passionate, consistent communication, and to feel like you feel safe and secure within your relationship, you can use all of those to turn into an affirmation. I am in a loving, passionate, committed relationship with Deborah. Deborah and I are in consistent and loving communication, and I feel more than good and I feel safe and secure to be in this relationship with Deborah. You're just essentially taking what you wish to experience and claiming it is already your experience right now. But how many affirmations should you have then? If you've got all of these different things that you wish to have, how many should you do? Well, I think that you can have as many as you like. Like I said, your subconscious mind is always listening, and it goes off of your state, your dominant story. We have on average 70,000 thoughts per day. And the only reason why our life doesn't really change despite each one of those 70,000 thoughts having the potential to create is because, generally speaking, the thoughts that we have day after day after day are very much the same as the thoughts we had the day before, which is why our life stays very consistent and linear. If you were to have 70,000 thoughts one day and then have a completely different set of 70,000 thoughts the day after, chances are very shortly your life would drastically change because your subconscious mind will have new stories to go off of. So because we have so many thoughts and each one of them has the potential to create, there's no reason why you can't have a long list of affirmations. But again, there is a recommendation. There is something that is, generally speaking, a good guideline to follow. I recommend having a master sheet where you have all the affirmations that you could possibly want to use regarding your desire. But each time you go to do your affirmations, I recommend picking 3 to 5 of them. Now, the reason why I say this is because if you've got a master sheet with all of the affirmations that you could possibly want to use, you will be covered for any scenario, any kind of situation, and to create anything that you want to use. But then having a master sheet, you would either have to A, read it, which some people may not necessarily want to do, or B, really struggle to try to remember what's on that sheet, which will be more you focusing on trying to get it done, as opposed to actually enjoying the affirmations and the statements that you are claiming to be true. So I recommend picking 3 to 5 of that master sheet, because that is quite a comfortable number that you could loop over and over in your head without getting bored of just saying the same statement over and over, because obviously you have about 3 or 5 of them to say. But also it's a small enough number that you can loop it without trying to remember what your affirmations are, therefore helping you stay within that state of enjoying what your affirmations are. So, recapping what we've done, they can be as long or as short as you desire. I recommend them being in the present tense as though you are experiencing that thing right now. Have your affirmations detail what you actually wish to experience, and I recommend having a master sheet so that you can have them all covered, but in any given affirmation period that you're going to make use of, I recommend making use of about 3 to 5 of those affirmations. You can obviously switch those affirmations up day by day and have a different 3 to 5 each day, but I recommend 3 to 5 being of the end result. But how often do we do affirmations then, or how long for? Now, this is a bit of a dividing topic when it comes to the LOA community. There will be some people, for example, Sammy Ingram, that says you need to be doing 10,000 affirmations before you can really create a new sort of neural pathway to create that desire. And then there are other people that have, affirmed once or twice and had the success. So where is the sweet spot? I personally think it's actually a bit of both. And I'm going to be giving you my recommendation based on my experiences here, But again, as with anything, take what resonates with you and is comfortable with you and run with it. Apologies if you can hear next door's dogs barking, they are a pain in my ass. But why am I a bit of both? Well, the thing that I have noticed over my time in the manifestation community and working with people is the quantity of affirmations required to manifest isn't necessarily the metric that we should be looking out for. I think we should be looking out for the dominancy of the story told, making use of the affirmations. Now, the reason why I've said that, and I've used this example so many times, but I'm going to use it again. You've probably had instances where you've thought of someone and then they've called you, or you've thought of a song and then it's played in the radio like 3 days later or something like that. You weren't sitting there affirming 10,000 times to make that happen. But the reason why it did happen was because there wasn't much opposing story. You weren't exactly sitting there saying, oh my God, I'm never going to hear that song in the radio, sitting there shaking in a cold shower. It was just a thought that just the song played in your head and you let it be. Your subconscious mind took that in because, again, every thought has the potential to create and therefore pushes it out. Now, on the flip side of that, the reason why sometimes people have to affirm a shit ton is because they have a big opposing story. The dominancy of their story is heavily in line with the negative, which means they have to affirm an awful amount of positive in order to sort of counterbalance it. So impression absolutely can happen with less thoughts, assuming there is less negative. But the reason why I think Sammy Ingram's 10K thing is a very valid point is because a lot of the community are, especially with specific person, are dealing with the struggles of a lot of opposing story. So in that instance, yes, you would need to be doing a lot of affirmations to overcome that story, or reducing the amount of negative that you're doing so that you don't have to affirm so much because the balance will be tipping like that. But the other reason why I also subscribe to Sammy's idea here is because they say that 10,000 hours worth of something is what is required to become a master of it. Now, 10,000 affirmations won't take as long as 10,000 hours, but the whole idea of a certain amount of repetition being required to create a master of something or a neural pathway, to me personally, makes a lot of sense, and I believe there's a lot of science backing it. So I think the repetition is absolutely an important factor to create a new story, or to create a new belief, sorry. Now, there is a big difference, in my opinion, between impression and belief. This is why whenever I refer to things in my videos, I say your dominant thoughts and assumptions. I would say that the assumptions is the belief element, which comes upon shit tons of repetition, but you can still impress the subconscious mind and create an outcome without having to believe it or having it be an assumption. If you reside within something enough, your subconscious mind will take that story in and push it out to be true. If you continue to reside within that story, it will get to a point where it becomes a natural assumption / belief, and that's when it will start being true on more autopilot. And that is where I think Sammy Ingram's 10,000 affirmations come into play. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how Sammy Ingram described it, because I only saw clips of her video from what people had sent me, and I never actually watched the full thing. But that's my interpretation of it, using the standard sort of self-improvement science of 10,000 hours to get good at something, as well as the idea of repetition creates beliefs and so on and so forth. So, taking that into consideration, the amount you should do an affirmation on a day-to-day basis, I would recommend should at least be more than you are thinking negatively. So, keep an eye or be very vigilant of your thoughts. If you're having a lot of negatives, you should really be affirming more than those negatives. I would recommend also finding ways to reduce those negatives, but this is at the current moment an affirmation video, and the reducing those negative videos I have all over the place. So if you want to learn how to do that, I recommend you check out my, is it videography? Is that what it's called? I don't know. The terminology for like your videos, essentially, my video catalog. But when it comes to affirmations, the amount you should do on a day-to-day basis is more than the negative thoughts that you're having. So if you're thinking about your desire for 2 hours and you find yourself having an hour and a half of those negative thoughts, if you really want to have the success that you desire, I would recommend affirming more than that negative in that instance. Overall, I would recommend reducing the negative, but like I said, for the purposes of this video. But let's assume that you are doing that then. How long do we actually affirm for on a holistic basis? I recommend going until your desire comes into fruition. I've never really been a huge Neville Goddard referencer. My channel is very much separate to that, and I talk about my experience and what worked for me. But I absolutely do love the statement of persist until it hardens into fact, which Neville Goddard obviously coined and brought to the manifestation community. Because I see it so often that people will persist until they feel it should have hardened into fact, and then give up, get angry, throw it all out the window, and piss and moan about it. That is obviously not going to be doing the right thing, and therefore I recommend you persist until it hardens into fact, not until you feel it should have hardened into fact. And assuming you are taking the first point, which is being more dominant in the affirmations than you are in the negative story, you will get your desire, assuming you keep going with that until it hardens into fact. So that is the basis of affirmations. That is all you really need to know when it comes to affirmations. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. If I've missed a point, or if you have a question that's separate to this, comment down below and I'll answer it in detail. But again, a final recap. Doesn't matter how long or short your affirmation is. As long as you've got an affirmation that resonates with you and you can stay consistent with it, that's what matters. I recommend them present tense because your subconscious mind works in the present moment. So if you're saying I have, or I do, or I am, or I be, that will help you manifest. If you're saying I will, or I should, or I could, or whatever, that is implying you currently don't and is potentially pushing your desire further back. I recommend having a master sheet of all the affirmations that you could possibly want to use, but at any given time, pick 3 to 5 of those affirmations and reside with them when you're doing your affirmations techniques. Do the affirmations more than you are doing the negative thoughts, and keep going with your affirmations until they come in. And the final and most important one, which I've left here, is to make sure that your affirmations actually detail what you wish to experience. Don't be doing any of that sort of half-assed, I want them to love me thing, because they can still love you without necessarily showing up for you in that way. They can love you at a distance. So why not say something like, I feel so amazing that they show me how much they love me, or something like that. Detail what you actually wish to experience within this affirmation. If you don't want to put in all of the work that I've just given you down below, I do actually have a very cheap service where I can come up with a bunch of affirmations for you. I can't remember the exact number, but if you click the link in my description, which it takes you to my link tree, and then go to my membership app, there is a product on there in the extras tab, which is where I can write you affirmations based on your situation. You don't have to be a member to grab it, but it is cheaper for members, and obviously when you are a member, you'll get tons of other stuff as well. If you're looking for one-to-one help where I can coach you to get your specific person, your specific job, help you overcome something or find your core or limiting beliefs, in that same link tree down below is the link to my website where I have tons of services available, which I highly recommend you check out. Thank you all for watching this video, and I will catch you lovely people in the next one. Bye-bye.